onslaught better than we usually do.
Alright, thumbs up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Dragons!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Hey everybody, and welcome back for episode 21 of LFR, the casual podcast for casual players of World of Warcraft, where we make the lore of Warcraft more accessible than Zareth Mortis. To get there, you just take a spoonful of Revendreth, a pinch of Bastion, 3 cups of Maldraxxus, and Erlon's left testicle from Ardenweald. Then mix with half a case of Redacted.
We can't spoil the PTR, dude.
We're your hosts, Sarith
and Dracoris. LFR usually stands for looking for raid, but today it stands for lots of freaking relief. Look, I love Arthas and his story, but I'm really glad to be talking about something else this week. Thank you all for joining us for another dive into an aspect of lore in the World of Warcraft. Today, say it quietly, but we're talking about some whispers made by a little dude called gynoth. But before we get too into that...
You love me! You really love me!
So we have no new reviews this week, but we do still want to take a moment to thank our wonderful patrons, particularly our AOTC patrons, who will be getting their names read out here each and every episode that they can still justify giving us money to talk about video games.
It's nearly Christmas, guys. You know, things are tight. We understand.
These AOTC patrons are Mud, Gershom, Anna, and Discordian Kitty. If you want to be like them, you can do that, and our other patrons, you can do that at patreon.com/LFRWowcast.
Yes, you can, and we appreciate each and every one of you, especially because it's nearly Christmas. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
So, this week in the news, we have Eternity's End now on the PTR, or at least the first 3 chapters.
I'll level with you. I wrote those notes before the this week's reset, so now there's like 6 chapters or something like that. There's a hell of a lot on there now.
Well, there you go. I didn't even know how many chapters were on there, so It's all news to me. Bobby Kotick is still employed, which still sucks, and he should still be fired. Hashtag fire Bobby Kotick.
Boo.
And probably not earth-shattering WoW news for anybody, but I got AOTC this past week.
Whoop, whoop. Congratulations.
So we've got all that.
Excellent.
And data mining is still going strong, but we won't talk about data mining because we don't want to spoil anything for anybody who's trying to stay unspoiled.
No, we're not going to spoil anything for anybody on here at the moment. If we do get to a point where we want to spoil people, it'll probably be a separate episode and we'll make it very clear. So yeah, you don't need to worry about spoilers on this. All I will say is I've played through the PTR campaign and it's a lot of fun. And I, for one, like it. But as is always the case with WoW Twitter, there are a hell of a lot of people out there who don't. I would fully advise you all to mute the hashtag spoilers, because there's a hell of a lot of it out there at the moment. But yeah, and anyone who does want to talk spoilers, drop me a DM, because I love that shit.
Oh, and one other bit of news that did come up is, I mean, it's not news, we knew it was going to happen, but Legion Time Walking and the Mage Tower have started.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Jesus, is the Mage Tower difficult.
Is it that bad?
I'm on my Warlock, I can't get like 10% in.
Shit.
It's so hard.
Shit.
They did release a blue post yesterday saying that there are aspects of it that are overtuned, that they're working.
Yeah, there's some unintended difficulty going on, so hopefully we'll get a little hot fix, a little patchy patch in there somewhere.
Like, I agree it should be a challenge, but I can't clear 10%.
Well, and the thing is,
beyond a challenge.
Like, my understanding is that when it was in there originally, you know, people had a lot longer to complete it, didn't they? And they were able to overgear it. Within
now your gear caps at eye level 50. None of your borrowed power works. None of your borrowed power from Legion works. So you're going in there without any borrowed power. And when it was originally created, we had a lot of borrowed power.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some sympathy for them because tuning that shit must be difficult. And also, you know, if I worked at Blizzard at the moment and was tasked with tuning the Mage Tower, you know, my response would probably be to encode the files with something that says "Fire Bobby Kotick first, you fucking assholes." So, you know, I think all
the transmog. Literally, if you put all the transmog together, maybe it just spells out Fire Bobby Kotick.
I think it's sack Bobby Kotick because, oh no, that's still only 2Ks. We need to get 3Ks in there somehow for the Warlock tier set because that still looks bad.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, they said they fixed it. All they've done is add like a little black stripe. It's still a fucking Grand Wizard hat. Yeah, I think that's probably about it for the news this week.
Yeah, we should see if anybody's looking for anybody to play with.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor.
Yes, somebody is looking for somebody to play with.
And it's Cerise.
It is. It's the, it's my guild. It's the Timbermaw Tavern, formerly known as the Catalina Wine Mixer. We've gone through some rebranding. But with 9.2 on the horizon, we're looking to open up recruiting once again. We're kicking off this round very early so names can start being gathered and giving newer community members a chance to explore our culture in a low-stress, low-risk environment. I'm going to have a link in the show notes for the guild's Discord. You can feel free to join if you're interested in trying to join the raid team. We raid once a week on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern until midnight. So if you're me, that's 8 to 11. We also do Monday night bonus raids, which are open to everybody in the community. Honestly, I think it'll probably be after this week, we're going to be shifting off of Mondays until 9.2 lands. Because we should have AOTC for the last remaining member of our progression team. And then Thursday becomes bonus night, and Monday becomes an off night. But yeah, I'll have that in the link. A couple of our guests are also on that raid team and in that guild from the past. Jin's one of them. Lex is one of them. So it's a great group of people, and it's a lot of fun. So if you want to come hang out with some cool people, click that link.
And is that Worm Rest Accord?
Yeah, that is that is US Worm Rest Accord. That's probably handy information to have.
Got your back, bro. Got your back.
But because of cross-realm raiding, we didn't do any Mythic this tier. I don't know if there's any plans to do Mythic next tier, but we can still, even if you're not in the guild, if you're part of the community and interested in joining the raid team, message an officer, and we do have members of the raid team who are not actually in the guild. So there's still something there.
All sounds good to me.
And now we should probably talk some lore.
And how is education supposed to make me feel smarter? Besides, every time I learn something new, it pushes some old stuff out of my brain.
So as you all know, every week, or most weeks, I ask my partner Lou what she knows about the topic at hand. This week, I asked her what she knows about... I mean, I didn't want to say Il'gynoth because I knew she wasn't going to know who the fuck that was. So I said the old gods, their whispers, anything related to that. Her exact words were, not a lot. So I can't really argue with that. So I guess I'm going to be educating her as well as everybody else here. So, who is Il'gynoth and what are these whispers? Let's find out.
Interesting aside, it's very funny that we're promoting the Timbermaw Tavern today while we're talking about Il'gynoth's whispers, because if the name Il'gynoth comes up during raid night, it just spirals into a bunch of Il'gynoth puns. Like, that's a bad Pil'gynoth to swallow. Let's get this Kil'gynoth.
Well, see, all of those jokes would make me Il'gynoth, to be fair. But yeah, so Il'gynoth whispers. So Il'gynoth was basically a growth of the old god N'Zoth. Now, we're going to cover old gods in more detail in another episode because there is a shitload to go into there. But we've talked about it a little bit in the bonus episode we did with Lex about the faceless ones. Old gods are essentially these gross, tentacular, multi-eyed growth things that have... according to the current canon, which I reckon is going to get retconned fairly soon, were fired across the cosmos by the Void Lords and kind of latch onto planets and try and take them over. So the old gods that latched onto Azeroth were Yashaj, which I can never pronounce. I've got that wrong every time I've ever tried to say it.
The other Sarge.
Yeah. N'Zoth, Cthulhu, and Yogg-Saron. Some people seem to include Gahoon in the mix, but those people are wrong. And then there's Il'gynoth. Now, Il'gynoth is a growth of N'Zoth, so he's like a canker of some sort.
He's like a tumor on a tumor.
And burst up elsewhere under the earth. So instead of being where N'Zoth was, which was under the sea with Ashara,
under the sea,
Il'gynoth popped up underneath the World Tree in Legion. So yeah, he was kind of like almost like a spreading of N'Zoth, which we then killed. And he pops up again in Ny'alotha in 8.3, having kind of been subsumed back into N'Zoth and popped up again there. So that's who Il'gynoth is, or what Il'gynoth is. Now, he's pretty famous, especially among the lore community, for having these whispers, which are, voice lines that are prophetic, and, they cover things that are going to happen in game. Obviously, we're talking about from when they were made. So some of them have already happened, some of them haven't, and some of them are still pretty hotly contested amongst the lore community. So we figured it might be good to go through them today, so that in future, if you hear anyone mention the Il'gynoth whispers, you'll know what they're talking about. So there are two sets of quotes. There's the ones from Legion, the encounter there, and there's the ones from BFA. And we've kind of split those out, partly because, it gives you an idea of what time frame these predictions were being made. And also just 'cause it's an easy way to do it. So with the Legion ones, we're going to start off with this. In fact, Sarith, haven't you got the voice effects on your mic? Do you want to read these off for us?
Flesh is his gift. He is your true creator.
Money well spent on that Blue Yeti, Sarith.
Absolutely.
I was really hoping you'd forget to turn the voice off. So this is a pretty straightforward one. Yogg-Saron screwed around with the Forge of Wills and started something known as the Curse of Flesh. This turned the Earthen into dwarves, the Vrykul into humans, and the Mechagnomes into slightly less mecha gnomes. So as such, if you're playing a human, a dwarf, or a gnome, your real creator is arguably the old gods, specifically Yogg-Saron. So I think that one's pretty straightforward. I don't know about you?
Yeah, I don't think there's much debate in this one.
No. Although, I assume now that the first ones are actually everyone's true creator and it's all bullshit. So we shall see.
Until we find the prototype ones. Or whatever they're going to call it. The
Flesh,
negative first ones.
Well, Flesh is his gift is just going to turn out to be the dude who makes sex toys for the first ones, isn't it?
Oh, God.
So... Right, come on, compose yourself. You've got more old god impressions to do. So the next line is...
To find him, drown yourself in the circle of stars.
Which sounds like a kind of high school level insult to me, My mother's a what? No, you go drown yourself in a circle of stars, No. This one is about N'Zoth. So at the time of this whisper, he was hiding away somewhere and we didn't know where. It turned out, because at this point N'Zoth had never been seen in game. He'd been mentioned in the Dragon Soul raid, and I think Chris Metzen had confirmed at BlizzCon that N'Zoth was the one signing Deathwing's checks, was the phrase he used.
That's also in Chronicle 3.
Yeah, but we'd never seen him, and we didn't know where the fuck he was either. Now it turned out he was underwater in Nazjatar. Which obviously we went to in 8.2, and it turned out in 8.3 that he was the big bad of the expansion, which they promised us wasn't an old god expansion.
Totally not an old god expansion. N'Zoth, totally consequential.
So the Circle of Stars refers to a few things, but the main one is it's a location in the Eternal Palace raid, which is obviously where we released N'Zoth from. It's interesting too that if you look up at the end of the Dragon Soul raid in the Maelstrom, there is a perfect little circle of stars there up the top. And I kind of wonder if had Deathwing succeeded in that raid, would he have released N'Zoth? It kind of seems possible to me with all the stuff about N'Zoth signing Deathwing's checks, that actually maybe Deathwing's endgame wasn't to split the world with that big cataclysm spell. Maybe he was just bringing N'Zoth out to play.
What if, since we were in the Maelstrom, we were kind of in towards the center of... Mm-hmm. You're talking about at the very end of Dragon Soul, right?
I'm talking about the very end, yeah. I'm talking about literally as Deathwing dies, you can look up and see a circle of stars above.
So we didn't go all the way into the Maelstrom. I was thinking we were, inside the Maelstrom, so we were under the Circle of Stars from Nazgûl, but that wouldn't make sense.
Well, and also with the way the Maelstrom is, and with Deathwing's bullshit and what have you, it's entirely possible that like it did connect to Nazgûl somehow. You know, we don't know what that funnel of the Maelstrom does once it gets in the bottom. It might not go straight down. But yeah, anyway, so it seems that's pretty much what the Circle of Stars is. It's just a reference to where N'Zoth was hiding. So the next one we've got is...
The King of Diamonds has been made a pawn.
I mostly just hate the fact they're mixing their metaphors here. Like, King of Diamonds is cards, pawns are chess. Come on. The fuck. But this is another one that's pretty straightforward. It's about Magni. So Magni Bronzebeard was literally the king of Ironforge, hence king. Then he literally turned to Diamond. King of Diamonds. Then he did a whole load of stupid shit that allowed N'Zoth to nearly take over in BFA. Made a pawn. It's another one of these that with hindsight seems really, really obvious, but in Legion would have been pretty interesting. Because, you know, we didn't know what Magni was going to do at that point.
Yeah, he had just kind of woken up.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so pawn of who would have been a good question back then, but... And to be fair, it still is. There's the question: was he a pawn of Ashara? Was he a pawn of the Void of N'Zoth? Was he a pawn of Azeroth?
I still think there's a chance that Azeroth's already corrupted.
Oh yeah, and I'll definitely come to that later in the answer to several of these questions. But yeah, so I think that's that one pretty much covered. Next up is
the Boy King serves at the Master's table. 3 lies will he offer you? So,
I think most people, except for the kind of people who like arguing on the WoW forums, I think most people agree that this one's Anduin. He's referred to as a Boy King a lot, and he spent a big portion of this expansion in league with a villain, the Jailer, literally serving him. That said, I have my doubts. The Jailer doesn't seem to have anything to do with the Void, which is where these whispers are coming from at the end of the day. And I'm wondering more and more whether it could be Wrathion. Is he a king? No, not really, but they call him the Black Prince, and a prince is literally a boy king. Is it possible that Wrathion is now Void-aligned following the events of Ny'alotha? Maybe. He's currently looking for the Dragon Isles, and if we end up there next expansion, maybe he'll be up to no good. It could also be talking about the fact that Wrathion was a raid boss in N'Zoth's raid. If N'Zoth is master to Il'gynoth, well, Wrathion certainly did serve at his table, even if it was just in a vision. The Black Dragonflight, with their connection to the Earth, are always susceptible to the Void's whispers. Here's a tough bit, though. It's the 3 lies. So for either of my sort of chief suspects here, Anduin and Wrathion, I'm struggling to find anything that fits. It's entirely possible that these 3 lies are still to come. I can say, having played through the PTR for 9.2, that I've not seen anything that could be construed as a lie coming out of Anduin yet. My money's on Wrathion going rogue again next expansion and fulfilling all of this shit, but I suppose we'll see. What do you reckon?
See, and I'm thinking Anduin's going to have some bad PTSD from all this jailer domination he's going through, so he may... We've already seen in... God, what's the name of the novel by Madeline Reed?
Shadows Rising, yeah.
Yes. That he already kind of used some Shadow Priest spells. And
a little bit, yeah.
He's kind of okay with torture, so... We're seeing a bit of a dark side to Anduin even before going through... I'm not saying he hasn't gone through trauma already, but even more trauma that I think there's a chance that it is Anduin, but it's still forthcoming.
I mean, I suppose there's also the fact that if he goes back to Stormwind and retakes his throne, you know, if he does want to explore the whole Void side of things, he's got Illyria there. And actually, Illyria and Turalyon as 2 contrasting mentors for Anduin is a really interesting thing to think about.
Oh, you're going to have, like, the angel and devil on his shoulders.
Yeah. Well, people are talking about the idea of Turalyon as, like, sitting on the throne, but maybe he'd be more dangerous, yeah, with the 2 of them either side of Anduin. I don't know. But yeah, that's a good one. It's a good one. Right, the next whisper we've got is...
Her heart is a crater. and we have filled it. Not going to
honest-
giggle like a little boy at that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to giggle like a little kid at that.
That's another one that just sounds like it's a your mum joke, isn't it? But I think this one's Azeroth. Look, the old gods have literally been burrowing and writhing around in that planet for thousands of years. Azerite itself seems to be what wells to the surface when Azeroth is wounded. First time Azeroth was seriously wounded was an old god thing, when Yashaj, I really can't say that word, got yeeted and
Yasiraj? I don't know.
that
I've heard
guy.
people pronounce it like that.
Yeah. The
Big old god.
Shah Daddy, right? He got yeeted and created the Well of Eternity, and we interacted with that via the Heart of Azeroth, which tied into N'Zoth's master plan in the end, partially. Maybe when we think we're, pulling cool Titan essence out of Azeroth, maybe there's some void shit in there too. Maybe that's what the blue stuff is. I don't know. Notable possibilities other people have thrown out in the past for this include Sylvanas and Ashara. I think it's Azeroth, man. I really do. Ashara's kind of a dick, and she is certainly aligned with the old gods at times. But I don't think her heart has much to do with it. Like, her heart being a crater isn't something that's ever really happened. Like, she went through trauma when, her Suramar and all that shit happened. But, like, I wouldn't go so far as to say her heart's a crater as a result. Or that they ever particularly filled it. I think it was always like an alliance of convenience for her. And Sylvanas, the Void have nothing to do with Sylvanas at this point. So I don't think it's that either. I think it's Azeroth, and I don't know if you've got anything else on that.
Yeah, I also think it's Azeroth, especially like it feels too on the nose for a whisper, but the heart of Azeroth,
yeah,
which we walk around and filled with Azerite and essences.
Well, also, bear in mind this is a Legion whisper. There's a reason I split them up. So at this point, when that whisper came out, we'd never heard of the heart of Azeroth. It didn't exist for another expansion. So although it's on the nose now, that's because it's on the nose with hindsight.
Us walking around with the heart is, like you said, it tied into N'Zoth's master plan. Yeah.
It's like when we come to the one about the Dreadlords later, that's so on the nose now it's unreal, but it would have made no sense 2 expansions ago. I think that's where we are. Next one we've got.
From the earth he draws strength. Our earth. Our strength.
So I think this one's Thrall. Or Thrall, depending on how you want to pronounce it with regional variations.
Goel.
Big green shaman orc warrior person. So, N'Zoth's Deathwing plan in Cataclysm was thwarted in part because Thrall took on the position of Earthwarder and helped empower the Dragon Soul and all that jazz. I think the old gods are still pissed about that. Why wouldn't they be? You bear in mind that Il'gynoth was like, I don't know, N'Zoth's big toe or whatever. He of all the things for him to give a shit about, N'Zoth's plan that got fucked up would make a lot of sense. It leads me to believe, actually, maybe it's the Void who've cock-blocked Thrall's shaman powers. We've talked about it being in his head. And actually, we talked a tiny bit about it with Jin on our last bonus episode. But maybe it's not all in his head. Maybe the Void have been cock blocking him. It would. I mean, he draws his power from the earth. They are literally in the earth. It could be. Maybe the reason he can get those powers back when he's in Torghast is because the old gods can't reach him there. I mean, if Thrall forgets how to shaman again when he gets back to Azeroth, I think I'm onto something. I suppose we'll see.
Never considered that. It's you might be onto something there. I do agree that it seems more likely to be Thrall than like Deathwing, because Deathwing's already gone.
Yeah, I think the Void. I know people say they see the past, the present, and the future all at once, but I don't think they necessarily talk about those things. Like, most of these point to the future, and it would be really odd to me if this one just pointed to the past.
The only other person I can kind of see is if it was Magni again, because he does draw strength from Azeroth now.
Yeah, maybe. That's another one that does make sense. Although at that point, he wasn't really drawing strength from anywhere in Legion. He wasn't really doing anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not wrong. That's another very real possibility. Yeah, that's possible. So yeah, I think Magni's a good shout, and Thrall's still my personal pet theory, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Okay, next whisper.
5 keys to open our way. 5 torches to light our path.
1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. So look, I know that some people think this one has already happened with the pillars in Legion, but those were to open the Legion's way, not the Void's. And I don't think that's what it refers to. Looking forward and looking at the stuff that we're dealing with now in Shadowlands, maybe it's the Zereths. You know, it's been confirmed Zereth Mortis isn't the only one of these Zereths that exists. If there is one for each realm, I mean, Zereth has been translated as Keystone by the brokers. If Zereth Mortis is the Keystone of Death, then there are going to be Zereths for these other cosmic forces too, and I bet the Void wants them. Like, the Void wants shit, that's what it does, it hungers. And I think that's what it is. I mean, if you think of those 6 cosmic forces, you've already got one of them yourself. If you're the Void, you have got access to whatever the Void thing is. So there's 5 more for you. And I think that's what it is. So that's my theory on this one. What do you think, Sarif?
I think that makes the most sense of anything right now.
I think that's fair. And you know, the thing is that we I read something today on Twitter that said that WoW for a patch will just give you an announcement that says bad guy has escaped from place and is going to another place. You need to find a way to get to that place. We've opened a portal for you. Now you need to collect soldiers for the next 6 months. And I kind of vibed with that a lot. And that's the thing. Like, there's nothing to say that the next patch of content we get won't be, hey, go and collect these 5 keys, you know, and with absolutely no preamble. And if it is, this will then seem like a really obvious whisper in retrospect. But barring 5 keys to soldiers or something, I think this is probably the best theory we can put out there.
Yeah, I like that one.
Okay, next whisper.
At the hour of her 3rd death, she will usher in our coming.
Try not to giggle at usher in our coming, Sarith. This is a professional podcast, damn it.
Super professional.
The best bit about this is he wasn't laughing until I said that. Right. So this one's some weird shit. I've heard some people say it's Sylvanas. I've heard some people say it's Ashara. I always thought in the past that it must be Sylvanas. But I was kind of saying that with an eye on her probably dying again in this expansion. And that's looking less and less likely. Now, it takes some mental gymnastics to think that she's died twice so far. I did a pretty good job of those mental gymnastics in the past. Please feel free to go and listen to the bonus episode I did on the 3rd Faction show about it, where I had a really convoluted theory that has since been thoroughly disproved. But I want to try and get this shit right without any mental backflips here. So, Sylvanas died once to Arthas in Calthalas, and once to Godfrey when she got shot in the head. And she died once jumping off ICC. That's your 3, right? I can't think of another one.
Neither can I.
So, arguably, she ushered in the coming of the jailer with that last death. Arguably. But that has nothing to do with the Void. And these whispers are coming from Il'gynoth, who, as I say, is basically a diseased big toe of N'Zoth. Like, he doesn't give a shit about what... He probably thinks what the jailer's doing is interesting and, like, a threat to the Void's plans. But he wouldn't be bragging about it. You know? It's not ushering in the Void's coming to bring the jailer into something. So I don't think it's going to be that. You could argue that it's only going to go off Sylvanas' post-Banshee deaths, so ignore the one to Arthas, which would leave her on 2. But that feels disingenuous to me. You could also try and argue that the Valkyr blocked deaths don't count. But that would leave her at 2 waiting for a 3rd. And I struggle to see how Sylvanas is going to die and usher in the Void anytime soon. Ashara actually feels like a more likely future culprit to me. I know Wowhead did an article once saying that she'd already fulfilled all of this in BFA. But I think they counted an extra death. They kind of did the Sundering, her becoming a Naga, as 2 separate things, which I don't think it really was. I think she made that deal at the time of the Sundering, and that's one death.
Yeah, I mean, the Sundering happened, and she did her whole magic bullshit, and eventually accepted the deal just to survive and still have power.
Yeah, to cheat death, yeah. So, I mean, if you argue that is a death, which I can see how people could, as it's the end of her existence as a Night Elf, that's a thing. She's now a Naga. I think she definitely died in the Eternal Palace. You saw her basically get sock puppeted for a second by N'Zoth and brought back to life, and then yoinked. So that's 2 deaths. And I think that's where she is, We see her then at the end of Ny'alotha when she says she's going to go and find the true throne of power. And man, I think she's going to get her ass killed wherever that is. Ashara's destiny is to be a raid boss again, I'm afraid. And my betting is that she ends up at Zereth Voidy Pants, or whatever they call it. Zereth Noctis, probably. That's where my money is. Zereth Noctis, right? Something like that. And she's going to do some old-fashioned ushering and bring in whatever the Void do. And I guarantee if next time we see Ashara, she's got a fucking scepter, right? I win. And you could absolutely see her getting blind. There's another thing later that relates to a blind queen. I think that probably ties into this as well, but we'll talk about it when we get there. But yeah, that's my guess. I think Ashara is going to piss us off again at some point soon. And when she does, we're going to kill her ass, and that's going to bring in the Void somehow.
Yeah, I think where we're at in the story now, Ashara makes a lot more sense than Sylvanas.
I mean, Ashara is being set up as a future threat. Sylvanas is being set up as a future ally at the moment, by the looks of things. So.
Yay for redemption arcs.
Whoop, whoop.
Everyone gets a redemption arc.
Yay.
Except for apparently Arthas, because we still haven't seen him.
So, next Whisper. We're not doing spoilers here. Next Whisper.
The Lord of Ravens will turn the key.
I'm kind of loving having a Void MC here, by the way. It's great.
Not quite as good as having Garrosh as an interview, but it's good.
And requires less editing. I've had my fill of editing after this week. So, but I'm still pretty confident that this Lord of Ravens is going to be Khadgar or Medivh. I've heard theories ranging from bloody Lord Ravencrest right through to Odin, but I don't see it myself. I will be surprised if Odin is massively involved again after his little cameo in 9-1. Mm-hmm. I think it's a while before we see Odin in any kind of antagonistic capacity. Look, I honestly thought that it was going to be revealed this patch that Tal Galan is Medivh, because his title, Keeper of Secrets, is the elven translation of Medivh's name, and the Watchful Raven NPC flapping around Oribos tagged as Kirin Tor, I was pretty sure that was going to be revealed as Khadgar, and they'd have some involvement in this expansion. But that's looking much less likely now. Very, very minor spoiler here, but it doesn't look as though Tal Galan's following us into Zereth Mortis. So that his story seems to be finished. But you know what? Maybe Khadgar and Medivh will rock up whenever we end up at the Arcane Zereth, whatever that's going to be called. I don't know, Zereth Arcanis or something. Yeah,
it'll probably be something to do with Order.
Yeah, maybe Zereth Ordos or something, right? That's my best guess at this point. But I think Khadgar, Medivh, or Khadgar and Medivh will be getting seriously involved at one of these keystones that we're going to end up at some point, and they will fulfill the Lord of the Ravens turning the key thing. That's my guess. What have you got, Sarith?
Yeah, I think I lean more towards Medivh than Khadgar. Mm-hmm. Because Medivh's also shown the power to turn into a raven without the staff. But yeah. It could be either, but I lean Medivh. Maybe it's just because I want more Medivh.
Well, it makes sense. The only reason I throw Khadgar in there at all is because the motherfucker turns into a raven, True. But yeah, I think that's perfectly fair.
He doesn't want to deal with saddle sores.
I don't blame the guy. Right, next Whisper.
Its surface blazes bright, masking shadows below.
This is another one where I had a pet theory that seems to have been scuppered. I really wanted it to be Bastion. It's so bright and so shiny, and it was a realm once assaulted by the Void. But it sort of seems like we've missed the boat on any major reveals happening in Bastion now. I honestly don't know where else it could mean, unless it's a comment on Azeroth. and yet another hint that the old gods are inside Azeroth, burrowing away and corrupting her. Shadows below the earth, etc. Or possibly at some point we'll go to a light plane or realm, and it'll turn out that, like the Naru themselves, their entire realm can go all reverse polarity and turn voidy. That could be pretty cool and would kind of make sense. But I can't really see it, just because... Can you imagine how difficult it would be to make something like that we could play on, that wouldn't be really hard on everybody's eyes? Like, I wouldn't want to play in a place that's just lighty, light. So I'm not sure we're ever going to see that in game.
Yeah, it makes sense, though. I don't really think it would be Azeroth, because Azeroth's surface doesn't really blaze bright. But I think it's also possibly somewhere we haven't seen.
Yeah. It's one of these that I think it's entirely possible this is just something we can't call yet. And that's the case for some of these. Like, as I say, that one of the last ones we get to is going to be one that's really, really obvious now that we've played through Shadowlands. And before Shadowlands couldn't have been guessed. And I think that could be the case for a few of these still. So that's the last Legion Whisper. So we now move on to the ones from BFA. What's exciting about these is that, like, the ones we've already done, being written around the time of Legion, you wouldn't think they'd be looking massively far forward. Whereas they say that they've got things planned out, like an expansion and a half, 2 expansions in advance, right? So these BFA ones could well be talking about next expansion. And that's interesting to me. Yeah. So the first one we've got, and in terms of the order that we're doing these in, I've literally taken them in the order they're listed on in Wowpedia. So I'm sorry if there's the order bothers anybody or anything. But yeah, the first one we've got for BFA, sorry.
Before the last shadow falls, the Father of Sleep shall savor his feast.
Now, the Father of Sleep is a title attributed to Mwazala, the death god dude. We're definitely getting some more Mwazala action in the future, guys. He's not done. We haven't killed him. And I don't think he's really savoured much of anything yet. We don't know when the last shadow is falling or what that's even going to mean, other than that it'll probably be something Void-related. I sort of wonder if Mwazala's going to eat Bronsamdi or something. Like, that's who his main grudge seems to be with.
That's going to be like a whole dungeon or raid where we have to go inside Mwazala and free Bronsamdi, and that would be freaking awesome.
That could be pretty cool, yeah. If we have an expansion where the Void is the main enemy and one of the dungeons that you do on the way through story progression is rescuing Bronsamdi from inside Mwazala's belly, that could be pretty cool. And we know already Mwazala makes deals. He made a deal with the jailer. And it would make a lot of sense once the jailer fails for him to try and make a deal with the Void as well.
Anybody who will help him.
Yeah, and anybody who will help him get back at Bronsamdi. That seems to be his main plan. And to feast, because dude's hungry.
He's big. He's a big boy. He needs food.
Yep.
He should just come to a raid night when you're pulling Sylvanas 40 times and eat 40 feasts.
Like a feast. Right, next whisper.
The Golden One claims a vacant throne. The Crown of Light will bring only darkness.
Now look, I've always been pretty sure this one's Terralion. That said, Blizzard knew we'd all think that the second that Anduin got yeeted off to the Shadowlands. And it now looks like Anduin's probably going to make it out okay. So, I think the options are, 1, and this is the one that most people have predicted, we get back to Azeroth, Terralion and Illyria are making a hash of everything, boom, prophecy fulfilled. 2, Kalia Menethil goes for the throne in Lordaeron. That'll go down real well with everybody, I'm sure. And thus, Crown of Light, Only Darkness, etc., etc. But man, there's also some Scarlet Brotherhood propaganda out there that implies, well, actually outright states, that they're going to try and place a Menethil heir on the same throne in Lordaeron. Menethil's a blonde, or golden. And there's a whole thing in the Exploring Eastern Kingdoms book about how we now know where the crown, Tyrannus' crown, is. So it would be really interesting to see that happen, the vacant throne of Lordaeron being occupied by a quote-unquote Menethil. because I guarantee you that would bring only darkness.
What if Arthas somehow comes back from the Shadowlands and tries to take the throne in Lordaeron?
I will unsubscribe, and this podcast will probably come to a halting stop.
You just don't want to have to do a fifth Arthas episode.
It's not that I don't want to. We are not doing a fifth Arthas episode. Dickhead. Right, next one. Come on, keep them rolling.
When their mistress beckons, 9 ravens take flight. Each seeks a prize to earn her favor.
So, I wondered whether this was the 9, Sylvanas' Valkyr, but I'm not really sure they've ever been sent to fetch anything. Maybe this is just another one that we can't predict because it's something that we haven't come across that will make sense in a future expansion when we go to some realm full of fucking bird people and there are 9 ravens or something. I don't know. I've got nothing on this one. What about you?
No. Yeah, the 9 would make sense, but at the same time don't make sense.
Yeah. The fact that there are 9 of them and they have wings kind of makes me think it's probably them. But I looked as hard as I could and I can't find any examples of them being sent to fetch things. So no. I think that's as good as we're going to get on that one, I'm afraid. Next.
The vassal of life disguises treachery. Beware the eyes of green.
I kind of love this one, and I've played around with a bunch of ideas on it. It could revolve around the green dragonflight, because in humanoid form they all have green eyes, and they're linked to the Emerald Dream, which is related to the realm of life. But with Ysera herself being in the Shadowlands and not having had any treacherous moments really, the green dragonflight is currently led by her daughter Marithra, so she's a possibility. That said, and actually on her Wikipedia page as well, it implies that she was once planned to be infected by the Void during Cataclysm. Now, I clicked the link and it went to a dead page on the Warcraft website. So, unfortunately, I couldn't find much to back that up, but you guys can check it out on her Wikipedia page as well if you don't believe me. So at some point, she was planned to be Void infected, so maybe that's been pushed forward a few expansions. That said, we're learning more about other pantheons now. And we know that Elune is from the Pantheon of Life. If we end up in or around her realm at some point, and there's someone there with green eyes, I'm calling Dreadlord.
Of course you are.
Well, look, my reasoning is this. The Enemy Infiltration Preface book has information on how the Dreadlords infiltrate various realms, and it says, the adherents to life are the most insidious of opponents, perhaps because their nature is so antithetical to our own. Still, we learned much from observing the link between their plane and Ardenweald, and we have high confidence that a vulnerability has been identified. Our operative has already gained the trust of her target. So that tells me there is a Dreadlord hiding on the life plane, in a position of trust. That would be a vassal of life. So I'm going to bet you a lot of money here that they will have green eyes. And at some point we'll come up on that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's, like you said, though, it probably will be a Dreadlord or something like that, where it's something in the future. It's not something we've seen already.
They probably want to give us just enough of a break from the shit going on in Shadowlands as well, that we forget that there are Dreadlords everywhere.
Yeah.
That's how I'd do it anyway. How many have we got left here? 3. Yeah, let's go for it. Let's get the next one in.
5 lanterns, now darkened. The flames they seek will light the Master's way.
I'm pretty sure these are the Zeriths again, like Zerith Mortis and the other ones. These are keystones of the first ones, probably all in disuse after being abandoned or, darkened. Maybe once they've all been turned on, it'll allow the Void Lords to make their way into our reality. Yeah, we know there are 6 cosmic forces. Obviously, the Void don't give a shit about their own one because they possess that. So my money's on the 5 lanterns now darkened, being the ones for order, disorder, life, death, and light. And I reckon at some point we're going to go around all of those and tick them off, and when we do, whoops, let the Void in. That's my guess. What do you reckon?
Yeah, maybe they need the power from all of them to truly manifest instead of just spitting their old god loogies all over the universe.
Maybe their end game is just to summon Captain Planet. Maybe that's where they're going with this.
Heart.
Hey, look, if it turns out the Void are actually environmentalists, that'd be pretty cool. Okay, next one.
The blind queen wields a scepter of bone. From the deep, she calls forth doom.
I'm going to resist making an immature joke about scepters of bone, and look, I think this is calling forward to something we can't accurately predict, but I'm going to say Ashara again. If this third Death Whisper that we covered earlier ends up being about her bringing forth the void when she next runs into us and dies, maybe she'll get blinded during that story. Or it's that she's blind metaphorically because she keeps grasping for power when she's actually a fucking pawn. First with Sargeras, then with N'Zoth, and next time with whoever it is that she buddies up with next time, because she will, because she's an idiot. That's kind of my feeling on this, because there isn't anything we've come across so far that fulfills this, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and you could even go with the whole blind with power thing.
Yeah. Or blind with rage, or Yeah, there's a lot of metaphorical ways it could go, but I'm not giving Blizzard much credit for nuanced storytelling at the moment because of the Exploring Kalimdor leaks this week. So instead, I'm going to say that we literally blind her at some point. All right, come on, next one.
The cunning ones kneel before 6 masters, but serve only one.
So this is the one we referred to a couple of times earlier. This one is so obvious now because smack bang in the middle of current content, we've learned it, right? So the Dreadlords are the cunning ones. They are prostrating themselves before each of the cosmic forces, but they actually serve Denathrius. Now, at the time this whisper was made in BFA, we thought Dreadlords were Burning Legion aligned. We thought they were just demons. Mm-hmm. We did not know at all that they were, death creations of Denathrius's that were going around spying on people. Like, we could never have figured that shit out until they outright told us it in the game. So, and that's kind of the lesson to take for all of these whispers, is that some of them seem really obvious looking back, but they weren't at the time. And some of them seem really opaque looking forward, but they're definitely going to make sense by the time we get there.
Yeah, I think the couple about lanterns are a good point where they seem to make more sense now that we know about the Zareths. Yeah,
they do. Now, an interesting thing here, there was some of the stuff I wanted to cover that we're kind of running out of time for this week. There were also some whispers from N'Zoth during BFA, as opposed to from Il'gynoth. So this is kind of more from the horse's mouth, or many mouths. How many mouths does N'Zoth have? I don't know.
Jeez.
But yeah, we're almost back onto a faceless ones thing here. But yeah, there are some really cool whispers that N'Zoth had. I think what we'll do is maybe try and cover those in a bonus episode at some point.
If we have a second to touch on one, I think it fits with a lot of what we've been talking about.
Yeah, sure.
But let me do it right. The 6 seats at the high table, 6 mouths that hunger. 1 will consume all others.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that blatantly pointing to the 6 cosmic forces. We've got the 6 Zareths, and obviously the one he's going to say is going to consume all the others is going to be Void, because what's the one that wants to eat everything?
Well, and the thing with this is I think it gives us a clue for where the story is going. Not where it's going immediately, but where it's going long term, right? There are 6 cosmic forces. Not just that. Who the overall bad guy is going to be, and it is the Void, right? Like, there is no way that it's anybody else at this point. All of these whispers talk about them going after 5 things because they've already got the one that they need, right? If I'm right in my interpretation of any of this, that's what's going on. And most of these aren't brags. Like, they're not bragging that this is going to happen. They're saying this is going to happen. We've seen it, right? They're saying one will consume all others. I think it's going to happen. I don't think this is like an empty boast. I think we are going to trek our way around the various cosmic forces, and I think the Void are going to kick our ass at some point. And I think the Void are the threat, the real threat. I think they are.
That's why I think Azeroth is corrupted, because I think Azeroth being corrupted is what's going to open their way.
And it's a microcosm of the fact that the Void are going to win overall, I think. And that we're going to be the last thing that stands against them after they kick the shit out of everybody else. And I think that's how it's going. I really, really do. The fact that, they're not calling out the other forces here. They're just referring to them all as a 5 that they need to get through,
Yeah, the only one they ever call out by name, really, I feel like, or at least the most, is the Light. They call out the Light a lot. Which makes sense, because that's their
Their enemy, yeah.
Yeah, their most opposing.
Yeah.
You got it's like order and chaos, light and void, life and death.
Yeah. So yeah, and the thing is, there are 9 of these Whispers of N'Zoth, and I'm afraid we just don't have time because I've got to go and pick my kids up in 3 minutes. But we will cover these in more detail in a bonus episode at some point because it's worth doing. And actually, some of these I'd never seen before until I researched it for this episode. But yeah, so I think that wraps it up for the Ugganoth Whispers. I think the Cliff Notes version is the Void are coming. They're going to fucking kill everyone. Ashara's probably going to be an idiot again at some point in the future. And don't trust people.
We're all gonna die.
And don't trust people with green eyes ever.
Ever. So, if you want to know where you guys can find us, you can find me on Twitter at Sarith. You can find Dracoris at Smiting Titan. You can find the show at LFR Wowcast, or you can email us at lfrwowpod@gmail.com. And again, if you want to join us on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/LFRWowcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. It was a bit of a quick episode today, but a lot of fun. And God, it feels good to be off Arthas.
That is, in fact, exactly what Invincible said. Have a good one, guys.
No, Arthas was on him. Arthas was on him. All right, bye-bye.
I am very uncomfortable with the energy that we've created in the studio today.